ego trap in spirituality. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Engineer community. Thank you for being here. If you're watching live, I want to invite you to type hashtag live. If you're watching replay, hashtag replay, so that we know that you're there, that you're watching. And if this is making sense, if you have any questions, please write them on the chat too there. That will be awesome. I'm looking at the chat too as I'm doing this. So let's talk a little bit about the ego trap in spirituality. This has many, many, many forms, but I'm going to talk about some main ones, and then it's up to you to start exploring to see where it could be getting in the way in your journey, right? So, as I mentioned in the past, I've been studying spirituality, behavior, right, the mind for over 16 years. And I've seen in the past, decade or even more than that, a lot of spirituality coming out more and more and more. And these gurus that show up and then sometimes they disappear. And what I've seen, and this is something that my spiritual teacher would mention all the time, is that it's very important to start developing discernment. Discernment meaning being able to check what is right from what is wrong, what is false teachings and what is true teachings. And I'm not saying that false teaching come from false fake gurus, because even important gurus, spiritual gurus, can make mistakes, and that is the ego again. So I'm going to share my humble opinion of the spiritual journey. What I've studied, what I've learned is that we are spiritual beings living a human experience, meaning that deep down underneath we have spirit, but more on the surface we have the human side. So from the human side, when we came to this world and we were not loved, accepted, when we were judged, criticized, we started creating what is called the false self, or also called the ego. So ego is not the enemy. Ego is just a part of you that is trying to survive, to try to receive love and acceptance from the environment. So what I've seen along all these years is, people, I'm going to give you an example that I just did a video on this on my channel. There's this Aubrey Marcus that is talking about sacred relationship, and he's starting, a polyamory relationship with another woman. So he's married, now he's married or is dating another woman. So there's three of them. So they're creating a threesome, and they're calling it radical monogamy, when the actual word is polyamory. And you know what? You can do whatever you want. If you want to have polyamory, you want to have 5 women, 10 women, or whatever, it's fine. That's your experience. But don't call that sacred relationships, because it's not. So a lot of people are using very fancy words to try to align it to their own beliefs, but they're coming from, many times, I'm not saying always, from ego. So we got to learn how to really start discerning what is going on. Because, another thing, right? This, what I call fake positivity, that could be an ego trap. Whenever I feel pain, because I don't want to deal with it, because nobody taught me how to deal with the pain correctly, I tend to repress it. I tend to ignore it with fake positivity. So I tend to start saying, nice things, positive things to myself to stop feeling whatever I'm feeling. That is what I believe an ego trap, because from spirit, we should be able to embrace everything and anything. And I'm not saying it's easy. So we're in this awakening journey to become enlightened. Like, if you want to call it the end result, in a way, right, would be the enlightened. But before that, we are in the awakening journey. But in the awakening journey, things that are unresolved are going to come to the surface so that we can deal with them, we can resolve them, and we can keep advancing on this journey. So when we start understanding a bit more the dynamics of how the mind works, how spirit relates to all of this, right, it makes it a little bit easier in this journey. A lot of people fall into this duality of positive or negative as good or bad. But the truth is, there's no good or bad. You can call a negative emotion negative if you want to, like we have sodium and potassium and calcium in the body and chlorine in the body. Some are positive elements, some are negative elements. That doesn't make them good or bad. They're just things in the body. And this is the same thing. Instead of a, blood level, right? We're talking about the mind level where we have positive and negative emotions. But God created everything. God created positive and God created negative. So spirit is here to love and accept what is. From ego, again, we fall into this duality of good or bad emotions. And that's what I, again, believe that will be another ego trap. So what I tell people, and this is what I was taught, and I've seen it over these 16 years for myself and people around me, the more we become consciousness, right? More conscious, what happens is the ego also becomes more tricky because remember, the ego is trying to protect you to avoid pain. The ego wants to avoid feeling hurt or pain. So it's going to do everything in its power. So as it sees you evolving, the ego is going to adjust to this new consciousness to try to get in the way of your journey, to protect you, not to, slow you down, not to screw your life. It's just trying to protect you from pain. When we see the ego for what it is, it makes it easier. But I've seen so many spiritual gurus out there talking about different things. Another thing, look, the ego trap applied to the law of attraction. You can manifest anything you want. That is ego. I'm sorry, guys, but that is ego. Because from spirit, there are many things that maybe are not aligned with your highest path. So maybe you're not going to manifest whatever you want because you're a mixture between spirits, that you're spirit from the core, and then on the outside, this human form. So how do you know if you want to manifest a partner in this characteristics, or you want to manifest a daughter or a boy or a girl, or you want to manifest money, or you want to manifest success? Is it from spirit or is it from ego? I know people I've talked to tell me, oh, no, but I know that comes from ego, from spirit. And I tell them, how do you really know? Oh, because I can distinguish between ego and spirit. You know what? That is ego trap. Because sometimes we're so into some type of belief, some type of protection that you're going to feel good, right? But that doesn't mean that whatever maybe you want $10,000 a month, maybe you want $1 million, whatever, it's aligned with your highest purpose. So one of the things that I teach the people I work when we go into spirituality is that when you ask for something, I would recommend, and this is what my spiritual teacher told me, and it really resonated with me, is ask for what you would like to, and then say, if it's aligned with my higher path. So you let spirit, soul, higher self, universe, however you want to call it, align it or not with your higher path. Okay? Because if not, what could happen is that we get maybe sidetracked, right? Because of these ego traps that we're falling in. Does this make sense? Type a yes in the chat or a no in the chat if this is making sense. Some different examples of the ego trap. Yes. So the law of attraction, I have kids. And my kids, if it were for them, they would eat chocolate every day. They would eat ice cream every day. And I know that that's not good for them, right? So I help them discern. I help them, put some limits, boundaries. The universe would be doing the same thing. It may be I want to make $1 million, and that is not the best thing for me according to my highest path. Maybe it's not going to happen. So these people that are telling you can manifest whatever you want, they're talking to your ego, not to spirit, because spirit is going to manifest what it needs. Seriously, what it needs, and not from a place of neediness, but from a place of needing to evolve, to grow. So again, the idea is to be able to be careful to discern where am I coming from ego and where I'm coming from spirit. Some people call it spiritual ego. It doesn't matter the name, but we have these ego traps that we fall into, and I've seen it over and over again. right? Another thing that I've seen in some people is that they tend to isolate. I've seen in many groups on Facebook and different places, right, where people say, oh, don't you find yourself that in this awakening journey now you cannot be around your friends, you cannot be around your family, you cannot be around blah. And I'm not saying to stay around toxic people, but if you cannot, instead of just isolating, because I have met a lot of people that isolate, right? And many convince themselves that that is the best thing for them. Many, not all of them, don't get me wrong, many are hiding, many are protecting themselves. Why? Because if they get out there and people judge them, criticize them, reject them, they don't feel good about themselves. So they rather be in isolation so nobody can hurt them. But you know what? Right? And I heard somebody today, and it blew my mind, that was saying this. A lot of people need, medicine plants to help them, become more aware to see what they're not seeing. That's one way. And I don't do that. I rather not do that. I rather have people around me, my family, my wife, my kids, my friends that help me see my blind spots so I don't need other things. So seriously, your family, your friends, your partner will help you see your unresolved issues. So what I tell people, one of the things that you can start doing, and look at this, my wife makes me feel blah. And start writing, my wife makes me feel blah, 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 and write it down, one under the other. Or my family, my dad, my mom, my boss, maybe in the past, maybe a month ago, maybe a year ago. Somebody makes me feel this, and this. Write it down. And I want to bring a teaching that is not easy to digest sometimes, and it's not easy to really own it, but I want to help you here, okay? One of the things that really helped me grow in this spiritual journey is to realize that how I feel is only up to me. And I'm not saying that it's okay to go out there and start saying whatever you want to others because how they feel is about them. No, 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 no. Watch out, because I'm not saying that. It can be taken out of context what I'm saying. This is for you, to keep for you. But if my wife says something that bothers me, I need to change my wife made me feel into Tommy made me feel. I'm the creator. We want to talk about spirituality. We need to talk about taking accountability, becoming responsible of your own life. Because if not, we're blaming somebody else. And if we blame somebody else, there's not much I can do more than trying to control others or walk away. And if it were like that, I should walk away with, I should be alone in this world right now. Because if my kids make me feel, if my wife makes me feel things, negative things that are my own, and I'm taught to move away, I'd be alone right now. And I'm not saying to set boundaries. I'm not saying to protect yourself. Don't get me wrong again, please, guys. This could be taken in a very bad way. But if we start recognizing that how I feel is up to me, if somebody says something really nasty, I can say, hey, that's something that you might think. I don't think that. So next time, please keep it to yourself. And they might not keep it to themselves. Or you can say, I'm not going to put up with that. So right now, if you're going to talk to me like that, I'm not going to talk to you. And you walk away. That is setting boundaries. But if each time somebody supposedly hurts you and you walk away, seriously, we're going to end up alone. Because we all have unresolved issues. We're still living this human experience here on earth to stretch our heart muscle, to become more loving and accepting first to ourselves. But how am I going to be more loving and accepting to myself if I don't have other people around me, mirrors, to reflect back how I'm treating myself? And this is the biggest teaching that was given to me that really blew my mind. People around you are showing you how you are treating yourself. As I started treating myself in a more loving way, suddenly my parents started treating me in a more loving way. My friends started treating me in a more loving way. And if they didn't, I could handle it in a much different way. So it was all about me. When I changed, external circumstances changed or did not change, and I wasn't affected. Not by disconnecting, by connecting, by healing what was bothering me. Because what happens many times, you might be reliving some type of memory from the past and you might not be aware of it. And that is triggering you now when somebody said something to you. The other day I was working with a person that she got really triggered with something that her boyfriend had told her. And what it was something that it reminded her when she was a little girl with a dynamic with mom. So mom sometimes didn't treat her in a very loving way. So now when her partner would say something similar, not the same way, not insult her, or similar as her mom had told her as a little girl, that triggered her and she got really defensive. And she was fighting a lot with her partner because of these unresolved issues. So we started working on healing those different events. And slowly what's happening is she's reacting less and less. And that's the idea. Now I become a co-creator with the universe in my life. My life doesn't depend on others, not on others or other circumstances, external circumstances. Most people live in this cycle of being affected by others or by circumstances. And I'm not saying it's easy. I sometimes get affected by these things. Don't get me wrong. But the idea is to be able to practice that love and acceptance to help me process what I'm going through, to eventually not be triggered by the things I was triggered in the past. So all of these things are related with the ego trap, right? As I was saying, because there's a bunch of people out there that are, thinking that others are making them feel, moving away from those type of situations, when actually the idea is to center yourself in you and see how you might be hurting yourself and doing these things. Another thing, right? As I always say, another ego trap, the search of purpose, the search of happiness, as if it's something that needs to happen on the outside. Today and yesterday, I've been listening a lot to this Aubrey Marcus podcast about this sacred relationship that he's now with two women, and they're talking about sacred and all of this, right? And I was listening to Alana, that is the new member of this relationship, and she was saying that this relationship brought her purpose. And that is an ego trap. I'm sorry, people, but we're meant to be us. Our purpose is to discover who you truly are. That's it. Who you truly are. Then to pour that in anything you do, whether it is playing tennis, whether it is going for a walk and, like pouring that energy to the people around you that, walk through you, going, working in a bar, working, at a store, working in whatever type of work, whatever that is, doesn't matter, because you are pouring yourself in what you do. And that is what I feel is the deepest purpose we're here for. Then yes, we can serve others. But it's funny because Alana is saying that she felt lost, she felt very vulnerable, she felt empty inside, and suddenly these guys help her, in a way, find her purpose. No, we need to work on ourselves so we become who we're meant to be. And in the process, it doesn't need to be I hide, work on myself. No. In the meantime, also get out there and start relating with others. Because this is something that I was taught and it blew my mind. What my spiritual teacher would tell me is the more unique we are, who we're meant to be, you encounter somebody else, whether it is a friend, family, your partner, and the interaction between those two unique energies creates an interaction that creates a new energy with a unique imprint that nowhere else on earth is. Because your uniqueness with the other person's uniqueness creates a new energy that is totally unique and cannot be seen anywhere in the world. As we start thinking like that, suddenly it's like those interactions expand us and the universe. Because the love that I could feel with a coachee, with another person, with my kid, with my wife, for every person is going to be unique. And as we understand that, suddenly it's more about being who we're meant to be. And then, yes, of course, getting out there in the meantime also, right? And share that with the world so that we start expanding God, universe, energy in this world in a very unique way. So again, if we think about that, it's scary relating to others, opening up, starting a new relationship, continuing the relationship that I'm in. Because if I'm in pain from my past, the mind is going to say, Tommy, I'm going to protect you. And the mind is not going to say openly, Tommy, I don't want you to do this, or Tommy, I want you to do this because I'm protecting you. This is how tricky the mind is. The mind is going to say, imagine this, imagine that, I'm in pain with my wife. The mind is going to say, hey, Tommy, I think what's the best thing to do? This is over. You don't love her anymore. You should walk away. Instead of saying, hey, Tommy, you need to face the pain that you're feeling inside of you because there's some unresolved issues from your past, it would say, hey, you know what? I think love is done. That I've heard so many partners say, love is over. Love cannot be over. We're loving beings. So if you're connected with spirit, you're going to always love the other person, no matter what they do, no matter if the relationship is over, you're going to still love them. If you're not feeling love to the other person, you're not actually coming from spirit. And it's okay if you want to walk away saying that it's over and the love is gone. Okay, that's fine. But that is ego trap again. And you can still walk away. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you got to stay in relationships that are, over. But many times we're convincing ourselves from the ego, that's again the ego trap, that this is a problem when actually there's something much deeper, as I was saying. Maybe I'm in pain and I'm protecting myself from finding a new job, finding a partner, relating with friends, seeing my family. And I love this. Another mentor that I have always says this, look at this. When you think you have healed, go live with your parents for 2 weeks. Go live with your parents for 2 weeks if you think that you have healed everything. And I truly believe that when we're healed, completely healed, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, that we're going to be enlightened. So if we haven't healed everything, we're still in the awakening journey. We're in the awakening journey, there's still things that we need to deal with. And what's best than having somebody with a mirror that is going to show us how we're treating ourselves. So as you can see, there's so many different ego traps and there's tons more. So what I would recommend is whatever decision you're making, try to check, is there any pain that I might be trying to avoid? Am I trying to protect myself with this decision? I want to leave my job. I want to leave my partner. I want to find another partner. Is there any pain? Because I was listening again to Aubrey Marcus as he was talking, and he was saying that something was missing, right? So if something is missing, you're talking about you, within you. If you need to go find something out there, like he was talking about this energy, stallion energy that he needs to, sexual energy that needs to put it somewhere, right? That is, again, something to go deeper to see what's going on inside of you, right? To deal with instead of looking on the outside. So when I was looking at that podcast, I could see a lot of pain from the three of them that they were using to cover from ego with their behaviors. And although they were speaking very spiritual, deep spiritual language, that doesn't mean that if somebody's speaking in this spiritual language, it means that everything they're saying is correct. I'm going to do another talk about this in a near future, but I want to bring another trap that I see a lot out there is the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is when spiritual teachers, whether they're aware or not, they might not be, 80% is aligned with God universe and 20% is not. So as you listen to that 80%, you feel very attractive to this and you want to follow, you want to listen to what this person has to say. And then slowly that 20% that seems kind of very little, but whatever, it starts getting into your mind and you start slowly believing in the 100% instead of being able to say, wait. This over here is great what they're teaching, but this over here, I might disagree with this. Unfortunately, many times we think that it's all or nothing. And it's not all or nothing. It could be 80% yes, 70% yes, but this 30%, I'm going to have to agree to disagree. I'm not going to believe this. But again, we're not used to that discernment. It's all or nothing. Authority speaks, somebody that we look up speaks, respect, and we need to believe everything they say. And again, if we look back into spirituality, that we're spiritual beings living a human experience, we're talking about ego. And everybody has ego if they're not enlightened. That means that they could have some part of the message that is not aligned with God, universe, whatever name you want to put it to it. So if it's not aligned, we have a 10, 20, 5%, whatever, that is not aligned, that if we are not capable of stopping and say, wait, this that he said over here or she said over here really resonated with me. Great, awesome, I'm going to follow this. But this over here, not really. Something here doesn't really resonate with me. It could be two things. It could be ego protecting you. So again, it's not easy to discern, but we got to practice. Or it would be spirit saying like, yeah, you know what? This is not aligned with spirit. And it could be either of them. And people ask me, okay, Tommy, how can I do that? How can I get better at it? As you get better at any sport, anything, practicing, and I love going to YouTube and finding some guru speaking, whether it is, Aubrey, Marcus, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, these people, Jay Shetty, and go through their stuff and say, this resonates. This here kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable. This here doesn't really resonate with me. And I have filtered some of the teachings from Tony Robbins as, if you want positive, and some negative that I feel that are not aligned with my true values, core beliefs, things like that. And although many things that they teach, all of these people that Jay Shetty, Mel Robbins, Bob Proctor, Abraham Hicks, Aubrey Marcus, Peter Crone, all of them have many, many great messages. But that doesn't mean that everything they teach is aligned, because they still have their human side. And that is, again, watching out for the ego trap, because everybody has it. Even my spiritual teacher would tell us, don't believe everything I say. Put it to the question, right? Question me, ask me questions, that put it to the test, and see if we can find even a higher truth, and then a higher truth, and a higher truth, because that really helps us in this evolving journey. Because things that I believed many years ago, now I look back and I was like, whoa, look at what I believed back then, and it was so misaligned, and I didn't even realize back then. As we open up to this of challenging what Tommy is saying and what others are saying and what I truly believe, it helps us discover a higher truth. If I need to, many times we're programmed to think that whatever all of these guys are saying is everything or nothing. And no, many people have great messages, but they get, again, that 20%, 10%, 30% of distortion, of not alignment. And we need to start practicing how to spot it out, because it's going to help us and then things that might be happening in our life to be able to discern better. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this talk about the ego trap. And as I said, it could look in many different ways. So we got to stand there in in humility to be able to see where we are coming from spirit, or where we could be coming from ego, protective mechanism. So thank you very much for watching. If you're enjoying this, let me know in the chat, please. If you like this on YouTube, if you want to follow, right, for more videos around spirituality, mindset, to help you start making changes in your life, please do. And if you want to know more, I have a free training. Just write the word free down here, and I'll share free training that you can start watching to help you start making changes. Again, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.